running in the opposite direction. I have another memory. The week and a half later, back in my classroom, I heard a moving story from a student. She worked in the second building, and after the first building was hit, tenants were evacuated into the lobby. After an interlude, the tenants were told that it was not safe to return to their offices. Then the second plane hit. The occupants poured into the street, joining thousands of others running to get away from the horror. She broke a heel running, but had to leave her shoes, and as the smoke and ash blackened the air, ran with the others to Hudson River, where she jumped, was thrown in the water, and was picked up by a private boat, part of an armada coming to help. Taken to Jersey City, she spent the next few nights staying with strangers to outfit them with dry clothes. Only one of the stories of heroism on that terrible day. Let us remember those stories too. And the last one that I'll read is probably more controversial. Post 9/11 plus 20 rant. I just sat through some wonderful 9/11 remembrances that watched some of the video of the horrors. Then I remembered some other times. Their very good friend was the good friend of Bill Gallo, the legendary sports cartoonist of New York Daily News. Bill told him a story once about him at 17 or 18 on a Navy ship at night waiting to attack the Japanese at Iwo Jima the next morning. We all thought we were going to die. They went anyhow. Bill did not die. Many others did. They were Americans. When people were fleeing downtown New York on 9/11, cops and firemen and Father Michael Judge burning the other way to do their duty. They were Americans. Now, 20 years later, with pseudo-Americans who won't get vaccinated because Bill Gates put miniature chips into it so the government can track you. If you get vaccinated, you can still get COVID. The vaccine will eat some people's cells or make them gay. The drug companies make too much money. If you get vaccinated, you'll have to keep getting more shots. Or some other wackadoo theory. What if they're right? Who gives a fuck? It's not about them. It's about all of us. We are protecting the population. We're in this together. Remember the common good. That's not communist. It's American. We eliminated smallpox in the U.S. by vaccinating everyone. A small minority may have actually gotten the disease. I know a person who got polio after getting the vaccine, but we wiped out the disease that would have killed many more. So take the shots. It's not just for you. If you still refuse to, you probably would have refused to off the ship at Iwo Jima, taken off your NYPD badge on a fireman's hat for 9/11. So it's your turn to take one for the team. For God's sakes, you're an American. I will stop after the rant, and if anyone wants to comment, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I love your rants, John. They're very. I don't know. I always have a wry smile after listening to you.
Yeah. John, may I offer you some thoughts on that, sir?
Sure.
You mentioned controversial. I have a controversial take on it myself. You know, there's lots of people who feel that there are many ambiguities, that this may have been a false flag. And that's troublesome. That's troublesome. But I think another perspective that is certainly worth considering, especially here in Poetville, where we're allowed to have 2, 3, 4, even conflicting ideas.
Okay.
I also have to weigh how many hundreds of thousands of people in Iraq were killed in a false flag attack. How many Iraqis suffered because
absolutely.
But I didn't hear anyone mention
and
all
Afghanis.
of those unnecessary deaths in Afghanistan or in Iraq.
Absolutely, Rick. But we do have a history of everyone taking vaccinations for smallpox and for
No question.
other things.
No question. I wasn't addressing vaccination. I
I
was
agree with you
just,
completely. I agree with you completely. Anyone else before I go to Chicky? Okay, Chick, do you want to read the opening for us?
Sure. Well, I'm going to do a little something different here, John, if you don't mind.
No, no.
You yourself mentioned there's an English version of the book. It's essentially the same book, but they treat the cover totally different. I don't know if you can see this cover,
Yeah.
but it has a number of things there that have nothing to do with it. For instance, well, the guy on the motorcycle, I guess that has something to do with it. But I was interested in how they changed it. I don't have the American version of the cover, but let me read from the inside of the cover, the first page, and the back.
Okay.
Okay. And these are not my words, obviously. It seemed like a good idea at the time. As a result of a rowdy night in his local New York bar, ex-Marine and merchant seaman Chick Donahue volunteers for a legendary mission. He will sneak into Vietnam to track down his buddies in combat, to bring them a cold beer and a supportive message from home. It'll be the greatest beer run ever. Now, decades on from 1968, this is the remarkable true story of how he actually did it. Armed with Irish luck and a backpack full of alcohol, Chick works his passage to Vietnam, lands in Quinnon, and begins to carry out his quest, tracking down disbelieving soldiers one by one. But things quickly got awry, and as he talks his way through checkpoints and unwittingly into dangerous situations, Chick sees a lot more of the war than he ever planned, spending a terrifying time in a demilitarized zone and getting caught up in Saigon during the Tet Offensive. With indomitable spirit, Chick survives on his wits, but what he finds in Vietnam comes as a shock. By the end of his epic adventure, battered and exhausted, Chick finds himself questioning why his friends were ever let in to the war in the first place. That's the inside cover.
Okay.
On the back, it has three little, I don't know what you would call them, but if you could see it there, I don't know if you can. Here's a picture of me sitting on a deck of a ship, my ship. I thought I have the right ID papers to slip into Vietnam as a civilian. I have the time. Maybe I could do this. No, I have to do this. Some authority figures will probably stop me, but I have to try. I have to. Yeah, George. Okay, I said. You get me a list of the guys and what units they're with, and the next time I'm over there, I'll bring them all a beer. It was sort of a flippant thing to say, but that's how it all started.
The thing I'll just point out before opening for the comments is that Chick was in a sports shirt roaming around, and it turned out that many of the people who should have stopped him, because he didn't say where he was from, who he was, just he was looking for people, thought he was CIA, and they left him alone. He also had a made-up story about every one of the guys he was looking for. Well, I'm really his half brother or his step brother, and our mother just died, and I want to bring the bad news to him personally. And I got him. Well, that stuff, either CIA or his phony story, got him through roaming around. How long actually did you spend there, Chick?
I spent, let's see, I got there January 19th, and I left there approximately March 10th. Just before St. Patrick's Day. I was at sea on St. Patrick's Day.
After Tet.
After Tet.
After Tet.
Tet was January 30th.
Okay.
I was only in the country about 10 days or so, 11 days when Tet began.
And for typical luck, when he got there the first day, he immediately found someone standing on the dock. Then he was hitching through roads he shouldn't have been in Vietnam, and another guy that he was looking for picked him up in a Jeep. But it wasn't
True.
all that easy. So,
Yeah.
any questions for Chick before we move on?
Can I add one little note? John, can I add one little thing?
Sure.
A former friend of ours, you remember Joe Conway, FBI guy.
Yeah.
The FBI got hold of my story. I was working for the president of the Teamsters at the time. And they invited me and Dugan and Collins and the guys to an event, a charity event of FBI and Marine Corps Veterans Organization. They call it McClef, Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. And they have a private dinner for their board in New York every year. And they invited me to come and speak to them about this. So I went there and I told them the story and I added on what you said. I didn't know how I kept getting by these guys. And then one guy told me, Chicky, they think you're the FBI or the CIA or something. They don't know who the hell you are. All right. So I'm sitting next to a guy at the dinner. He's introduced to us, say Frank Smith. And at the end of the dinner, he says, I read your story. He says, it was great. I want to give you something. You keep this. And it might come in handy sometime. And he gave me a little bitty pin, and I still have it, John. And it says on it, CIA. I told the guy, I said, if you would have given me this pin 50 years ago, I would have had my own helicopter.
I'll add just one more background story that may embarrass Chick or may not.
I don't like to be embarrassed, John.
Chick was always articulate and obviously bright, but he didn't do well in school. He got thrown out of Rice High School in New York, a Catholic high school. And everyone thought he didn't care. He got his GED in the Marine Corps. He wound up taking a few college courses when he got into labor. And then he wound up getting a master's in public administration from Harvard without having the college degree. And he found out after all this, when he was 73, he's dyslexic. So, and he said to me, when he described to me, he said, I knew everyone thought I didn't care. I really did. And it bothered the hell out of me when other guys who I knew I was smarter than, they were all getting this stuff in school and I wasn't. So along the way, he had to learn to cope with it, even before he knew he had dyslexic. All true, Chick?
Yeah, basically, I found out at the age of 72, and which was great because I did two things. I had to re-examine my life, and it having that explained a lot of things to me. But more important, I got to write the book. And in re-examining my life and why I did this and why I did that. And besides, I was just a little wacko, as you know, John. That was part of the neighborhood too.
Yeah. You should come Thursday night to the writers group, Chick. There's many more people there. And that's where Bobby goes every week. The brother, his younger brother is a novelist. So.
This is an English teacher or ex-English teacher. We would have kids occasionally who would be dyslexic, and it was very difficult often to figure it out, because if you try to, if you're doing a lesson and you're trying to get them to interact, what they would do, they had strategies where they would listen very carefully to what you were saying. So when you asked them a question, they didn't, they'd make out that they'd been reading it from the text, but they would really just kind of using their attention skills. They were honing. It's like, like with blind people, they develop other senses. Their other senses become more heightened to compensate, and it was often very difficult. And sometimes you were trying to trick them out to find out it's so that then you could refer them to like sort of the specialists in the special needs departments, you know, to help them with their reading. But and I kind of read so many stories about other people in public life, you know, who had that, you know, dyslexia, and yet kind of managed to somehow manage it in a way. So you kind of develop strategies, don't you? And I just wonder, that's fascinating here, like from a real perspective, you know, like with chicks.
In the words of a mutual friend of Chick and I, Kathleen Collins, that in our neighborhood, and I've got nothing bad to say about my Catholic grammar school. I got the great education, but what her comment was that in those days, special ed was 2 across the wrist. You know, if you,
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were in Scotland, you got the tours.
You said something there. I didn't know that I was dyslexic. And that's what I mean when I found out at that age. I had to go back and remember that day that like I had this problem at school, or this question I had to answer, and I was digging deep in my head to answer this. And however, I did not know that I had some disability or learning, whatever you call it, whatever you want. I just tried to figure out the problem that was in front of me. I had nothing to blame it on. And the closest I get to it is I was taking a course at Harvard. It was taught by a very famous admiral, American naval admiral. And it had really to do with math, and it had depth charges and mines, and math was a big part of the issue. And he said, "You got the right answer, Chick," he says, "but how did you get there?" And I looked at the guy and I said, "Oh, I don't know. Am I supposed to know how I got there?" And I never did know how I got to the conclusions. I just kept digging. And something made more sense than the other. That's the only thing I'm guessing at, all right? But I did find an answer, a part of an answer that day. And I said, "Admiral, you know, I think it has to do with money." I said, you throw all them numbers up there and they mean a lot of things. But if you put a dollar sign by them or a decimal, so it's $3.84, all right? It's clear. I see it clearly. It's $3.84. I see a picture. $3 and 3 quarters and 9 and a nickel and 4 pennies, and that's what I see. And maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I don't see numbers. I see $3.84. And if I had a few of them, I could buy a bike or something. I don't know. I just don't know. But I've tested that theory about numbers and dollars. Everybody can add up a few nickels. A lot easier than they could add up 5 of anything else. 5 pounds or 5 watts or 5 whatever.
I think there's like a sort of disconnect, sort of a link there between the abstract concept of numbers and the practical aspect of money. Everybody, yeah, if you're working and you're going up to get your pay from the boss, you're going to be count everything what's coming to you, what they owe you. I think most people have that instinctive thing, but it's things like, if it was something to do with just maths, like a mathematical problem, it would be a different kind of concept then. Like it would be more of an abstract idea. And so that idea that relating it to dollar signs, you're making it kind of that's something that you could relate to. But no, it's fascinating.
We're just trying to mute the dog. Lee, you haven't said anything yet. Do you want to read for us first?
Alice, stop it.
But you're muted, Lee. So, okay.
Oh.
Do you want to read?
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are. Wanna read?
Okay. I'll read.
Stop.
It's not as serious as some of this stuff, though. Except in California, we're still waiting for the results of the recall. Anyway, this is called Grandma's Baby. Each time we drove to Grandma and Gramps' house, I would be greeted by this old woman. She held out her arms to me as I climbed the steps, saying, "Here comes Grandma's baby." Eventually, when I was first able to speak, when they said we were going for a ride, I said I wanted to go see Grandma's baby, and that became her family name. When my granddaughter was a baby, I tried to tell her my name. I would say, "Nana, Nana," and she would say nothing. I really wanted to be called Nana. When she was starting to talk, she reached up to me and said, "Tai Tai." I would say, "No, Nana, Nana," and she would say, "Tai Tai." When she started to toddle, she and her mom were walking toward me, and she smiled at me and said, "Hi, Dodo." Her mom giggled, and I gave up and said, "It's Tai Tai." Excuse me. Grandma's baby would read to me. I remember my favorite, The Sailboat That Ran Away. We played Candyland, laughing at the gingerbread man. We called him Cookie Boy. Nothing made us laugh so much as having to go back all the way to the I love you hearts. When I was older, she would tell me stories from her life. The story about having your pigtails dipped in the inkwell actually happened to her. She would tell me of friends at school. It would end with, "Oh, he'd be dead by now." The thought was strange to me and kind of sad, from some faraway place in time. She had pictures of kittens. When I was old enough to play outside and skate and ride a bike, it was Purple, a J.C. Higgins. She would worry and call out, "Don't go so fast. Don't ride with that popsicle stick in your mouth." One day, tired of hearing about it and being a brat, I showed off to her by speeding the bike and ran head on into a pricker bush, which is filed under guilt in my brain. I know I was a brat because Leslie was my playmate and her mother told Leslie that I was a pain in the ass, which Leslie, of course, told me. My granddaughter is growing up. We don't play and read much together anymore. Last week I yelled at her, "Don't run on the stairs with that sucker stick in your mouth." Oh, often now she will jump at me and try to scare me. Her mom says, "Stop being a brat." And I say, "I don't like it when you do that." I was telling her last week about two sisters I admired that were somewhat older than me, who would have loved her computer games. They lived several houses away. There were no computers then. Yes, they'd be dead now. Now I get it. Dear Grandma's baby, wherever you may be, I finally get it. Signed, Tai Tai. P.S. There sure is a lot of love in time.
If you had the J.C. Higgins bike, you bought it from Sears Roebuck. That was
I don't know. I didn't buy it.
That was a J.C. Higgins. That was a Sears Roebuck brand. They had baseball gloves and all that. They probably had it manufactured by someone else, but they had their name on it.
I love that bike.
So everything in America you could get in Sears Roebuck is the impression I get. Sears Roebuck is the one store in America that I think everybody remembers. You know, whether like
There is no more Sears, though.
It's gone.
because we had C&A and we've got some of those kind of brands. Marks and Spencers, they're still going, but no, yeah, it was everything was Sears Roebuck, wasn't it?
Any other comments to Lee?
Oh, I just think this, how you remember all of those details, those things between your friends, and and this kind of to and fro sort of conversation dialogue between you and recollections.
It was funny. I can't remember some of the people's names that I've worked with in past companies, but I found a picture of myself in a classroom that was a kindergarten class, and I remembered every name. Isn't that weird?
Speaking of pictures, if you saw a picture from when David Wilson, when he was young with his brother, all dressed up to the eyes, we saw a young one. How much do you remember? How much do you remember, Rorschach? Of your
I remember a lot. Yes, I am blessed or cursed with a very vivid memory.
Yeah, I've got one of those too.
Yeah,
People tell me that I remember more about their childhoods than they do.
yeah.
Rorschach, do you want to pick it up now?
Sure, yeah, sure. I have a couple things here. So I'm going to read a poem that was in the Rorschach page some while ago. This is called A Desperate Inspiration. This useless exercise in poetry. Feeling September fog seeping through my grandfather's coat. Mists and ships of the red and white fleet circling around the Alcatraz rocks. Excellent view from the Art Institute Cafe, where students and teachers have entered and returned for the fall semester. 2 blocks away, my daughter started kindergarten at Yickwo Alternative Elementary School. Everyone has purpose, vision, and goals, ways to fill their time. But I don't. With rare, real luck or desperate inspiration, I might write a few lines of poetry, damp gray line like the fog hugging the Marin and Sonoma shores, all burned off by noon. Clear blue daylight, appropriate for prose or writing checks for bills. But the subtlety of poetry forgotten, closed in the morning book, and the poet beset by reasonable demands, make money, be strong, take care of the family, and pay those damn bills. The poet must live on empty amidst these empty forms of the day. And I'd like to read one more for fun. And this is a cover. This is J.R.R. Tolkien. The man in the moon stayed up too late. There is an inn, a merry old inn, beneath an old gray hill, and there they brew a beer so brown that the man in the moon himself came down one night to drink his fill. The ostler has a tipsy cat that plays a 5-stringed fiddle, and up and down he runs his bow, now squeaking high, now purring low, now sawing in the middle. The landlord keeps a little dog that is mighty fond of jokes. When there's good cheer among the guests, he cocks an ear at all the jests and laughs until he chokes. They also keep a horned cow, as proud as any queen. But music turns her head like ale, and makes her wave her tufted tail and dance upon the green. And oh, the row of silver dishes, and the store of silver spoons. For Sunday there's a special pair, and these they polish up with care on Saturday afternoons. The man in the moon was drinking deep, and the cat began to wail. A dish and a spoon on the table danced, the cow in the garden madly pranced, and the little dog chased his tail. The man in the moon took another mug, and then rolled beneath his chair, and there he dozed and dreamed of ale, till in the sky the stars were pale, and dawn was in the air. The ostler said to his tipsy cat, "The white horses of the moon, they neigh and champ their silver bits, but their master's been and drowned his wits, and the sun'll be rising soon." So the cat on his fiddle played "Hey diddle diddle," a jig that would wake the dead. He squeaked and sawed and quickened the tune, while the landlord shook the man in the moon. "It's after 3," he said. They rolled the man slowly up the hill and bundled him into the moon, while his horses galloped up in rear, and the cow came capering like a deer, and a dish ran up with a spoon. Now quicker the fiddle went diddle-dum diddle. The dog began to roar. The cow and the horses stood on their heads. The guests all bounded from their beds and danced upon the floor. With a ping and a pong, the fiddle strings broke. The cow jumped over the moon, and the little dog laughed to see such fun, and the Saturday dish went off at a run with the silver Sunday spoon. The round moon rolled behind the hill, and the sun raised up her head. She hardly believed her fiery eyes, for though it was day, to her surprise, they all went back to bed.
That sounds like my old neighborhood.
Thank you. Yeah.
Comments?
What a lovely variation on a nursery rhyme. Yeah. I'm sure the kids would love hearing that. That would be,
The
such
man
a,
who's bagged under
Well-
the chair, they might not go for that. Their parents might not go for that. What does that mean? What does that mean, Daddy?
yeah, the kids always stuff that their parents would disapprove of, though, don't they?
I
Anyone
loved it, Ron. I loved it.
Me too. That's one of my favorites. And that's in, well, this was from the collection of the Tolkien Reader that Ballantine put out in the 60s during the big craze. And it's in The Lord of the Rings. I think Sam Gamgee recites it in the Prancing Pony Inn before things go awry.
Rick, do you want to pick it up? You're muted, Rick.
Maybe I should unmute first.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start with something serious, and then I'll go silly. And so let me start with "Set My Trillionaires Free." They're going on a planetary orbital spree. It's a damn sight better than paying me. Why dirty yourself with another employee on the shelf? They can make it to work. That's all that I care. Who cares a whit, as long as they can stand right there and, well, sit. Surely my workers sickly stand while I count each moment with my eagle eye. Commit any transgression, you're immediately sacked. Pause a minute, you'll steal a penny from my pack. Stop for a break. You're not a machine. I don't understand what you say when you mean. Stop for a lunch. I have a hunch you're stealing from my very plate. And I'm repeating, don't be late. This is on a slightly lighter topic, at least one that my brother and sister poets can appreciate. Poetry? How? I coax poetry with a phrase and lure her here with lazy days parade. I would bid her sit and stare and share a lemon water with my daughter. Though I will concede in reedy, pleady phrase in times the needing seating, bid her here recline in time and lend her sublimy inspiration to dust this oh so thirsty nation. When we've worn out words of plenty, 6 and 80, I would coax some daring darling starling to a lighty and fix her light upon my crooked finger linger. I will, should she not pass, so freely flitting fretless by, take out our pen and mar the clear blue sky, and shifty nifty pause and toss some looped old rhymey-timey dross, hoping that on some second pass the last might tweak and send my pearly trenchant pension sweep. No longer song so weedy now, wordsmithy worthy work, yet my poor pale palate tumbles toward the kirk. I will practice while she alludes as dreamy eye, drifty perfume would imbue, and often as my pen doth dither, I bid her pause and drop her litter. Will she come and linger hither, and pat my cheek and call me toy, I, her pinion passion boy. And one last one, since many of us are still growing older, I call this ripening. Respecting the passage of time, so do we ripen as our mountains we climb. Some fall quite slowly, some flutter quick, like a leafy full branch that resolves to a stick. Some barely blossom and fall to the earth. Others in full time spend their days ripened in mirth. Seeds flutter by and leaves dance in a waltz with the wind. Who knows what ripe moment when our weighty stem thins?
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
John, I have to go.
Okay. I'll send you the link for Thursday. I'll send you the link for Thursday when Bobby's
Okay.
on too.
All right, thank you.
Be well.
Bye.
Okay. Or Rusty, do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, sure, sure. I have two of them. One is not really a poem. It was just my thoughts on 9/11. It's not even titled, just 9/11. 20 years have passed since the World Trade was attacked. Still, I will never forget. Friend Carol and I planned an outing. We would eat early breakfast at Windows on the World. We then off we'd go to visit the Statue of Liberty. Tourists, we are not. We are proud New Yorkers. Before taking the 5 a.m. train, my psoriatic arthritis flared. I canceled our trip. I was asleep when my partner Maggie shouted, "A realistic movie is being made." "No," I blurted, "this is really happening." Carol and I would have been eating there. I will never forget my daughter Melanie's hysterical voice. She knew I was on my way to the World Trade. Phone lines had been jammed. She sobbed when I said I was home. I will never forget Melanie saying our friend Larry Nadell was caught on this 92nd floor. My friend Paul Saul was trapped too. Early that week, my manuscript, Asylum from the Inside, was being reviewed by Newsday investigative reporter Jamie Talon. September's terrorist attacks put my feature on permanent hiatus. The nurse in me wanted to help. I donned my American flag t-shirt headed to the Newsday building. Once there, multiple security guards prevented me from entering. I ordered them to phone Jamie. Into the newsroom I went. Though not a clickety-clack of typewriters, personal computers in the room, tap-tapped in unison, creating a hurried din. It was a scene right out of the Daily Planet. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen were pounding out stories. But this was not a fictitious scene from 1953. It was September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Jamie said I answered her prayers. The chief editor demanded she find a family affected by the attack. Though I did not get credit, I was instrumental in providing vital information to Newsday. Jamie and I worked with the grieving family. The following morning, the story was reported for all to read. And never will I forget the acknowledgement and applause I received at the memorial service for breaking the story. I humbly bowed my head. The nurse in me wanted to help. I was satisfied I found a way. And that's that. And then I have one more. I was going to read something for Chick, Evading Death. It was a piece I wrote for Kurt Vonnegut. Maybe I'll read that.
You've all muted yourselves.
Oh, I did? Oh, somebody muted me. Thank you, Ian.
I think
So-
John has
Huh?
muted it now. John, I can see John's mouth moving, but I can't hear the words.
Yeah, the
Oh,
reason,
there you go.
the reason Chick probably had to leave was he's a full-time caretaker. His wife has a brain tumor.
Oh,
And he
poor
normally
thing.
lives in Florida, but he just set up an apartment in Connecticut so he could be near his daughter's family to have some help. So it's
Well, we got to put prayers out for him too, you know. But this was Evading Death for Kurt Vonnegut. Captured, I hemorrhaged from my head, without men for my body, and so it goes, my soul. Not a morsel provided, a crust of bread. Frightened, alone, and imprisoned below, desperation was my companion as war took its toll. Confined in this funerary hole, I became haggard and old. My mind and body were too numb to entertain pain. And each day I plotted to break my captor's hold, often retreating into a world of fancy, a respite from my prison life, offering a refrain. And death forever seeped into cell number 5 with its clammy earthen whiffs of darkness. And how I bargained with the enemy to keep alive. I was this audacious corpse, surviving harshness. And that night death visited my cell to steal me. Raging against the probing reaper, I fought as ought, with grit and dignity. I would go naught. And above me the ceiling erupted. In fiery skies I could see the shadow of a B-26 Murata was here to set me free. A prisoner of death, I would be no more, indulged in the cruelty, the absurdity, the belligerence of war.
I'm glad that you fitted that line. So it goes. That was a line that I've ended a whole bunch of stuff with. But I've always given credit to Billy Pilgrim. It was always Billy Pilgrim's.
Oh.
And
I know. And just for everybody to see, I'm just going to change my picture up there. And if you see, that's Kurt Vonnegut and that's me. He used to like correct my little this and that, but like him, you know, I don't get published often, and so it goes. Who cares at 70 anymore?
He was one of the must-read authors when I was growing up in the 60s, along, you know, like with the beats, you know, Jack Kerouac on the Road. I remember it's a bit like sort of Catch-22. It was one of those books where, although you knew that the subject matter was rather grim, you couldn't help but laugh with a sly chuckle most of the way through it. It was such an offbeat take, and at the same time, you were aware of what, the awful kind of history behind it. I love that. Yeah, the fact that you knew him or you know him.
Yeah, I knew him.
The Rusty New
Vonnegut
Kerouac.
was able to transcend being a science fiction writer. He was able to be a mainstream literary figure. Although, I mean, he wrote science fiction basically. A lot
Yeah.
of the
Well, I
time.
remember the other book I read, his Cat's Cradle. Did you ever come across that?
Yeah, that was Vonnegut too. A
Sue!
Rusty New Kerouac too. Rusty knows everybody.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Sue.
Sue.
Hi. What happened?
Welcome to alternate spoken world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
you
Blake.
found us.
Yeah.
So I was just going to turn it over to Ian to be our featured wrap up. Do you want to jump in before him? Do you have anything to read?
Oh, I could. Ian, how is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay too. Yeah,
And
I mean,
if you,
being top of the bill doesn't happen to me all that often.
We're just reading one or two poems, and then we're going to move on.
okay. Okay, let me just quickly find them because I've been in another Zoom for 2 hours. If you let me have the link, I can send it to Craig as well because he's been trying to get in. That would be good. Right, hang on, I will just find my documents.
David, do you
How are
have
you
it right there?
guys?
There it is right there. There it is right there. Just let me get into it.
And then I can try and get Craig to come before Ian.
There it is, Sue. Go ahead.
Brilliant.
No, I want it. No, I want it. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Go ahead, Sue.
Okay, I'm ready. So this is new.
Awful images, that is. This is brilliant. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. It's still very new and raw, but yeah, I think it might turn into a longer sequence.
There's always such sense of weight to your images, Sue. I think the way they come across, they just kind of like seem to sort of sit there very firmly.
And you do so much about the sea, and you bring it to all of us, as though we're there. I've read so much of your stuff, and there's always so much of the sea involved in it.
Oh, thank you. It's hard to find new things to say about the sea. I've actually written a poem about that.
Yeah, it doesn't change much, does it? But
I don't see Craig. Ian, so
I will. I'll quickly email him and see if I can get him. He might have just given
I
up.
sent him the link on Messenger too.
Okay, I'll send it to him.
Yeah. I think though in Barcelona, if he's in Barcelona, he's on about kind of going on 10:30 now, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, and he's got
It's
school
late.
tomorrow, so he might have given up.
Ian, why don't you pick it up then, and
Yeah.
if anyone shows up after, we'll let them in. If not,
Yeah, I know that's fine. No, yeah, I was a bit perplexed. So I didn't know what was going on, but obviously I'd done a bit of preparation. But my plan was to just give you a bit of a background. About 10, 12 years ago, I began re-engaging with poetry, and I'd written lots and lots of stuff on and off during the past years. And I looked at it and I thought it wasn't worthwhile. And then I started writing again, and I had what is one of those watershed moments where you think I've written something which I thought kind of encouraged me to think, yeah, I should carry on writing. I was at that kind of crossroads, whether should I carry on? Am I really kind of writing anything worthwhile? And so I'll do that one, which was going to be my opening poem. Now I was going to sort of do a sequence of poems from then up to the present. And then I'll do a couple that were on the long list, which I wasn't going to end up reading. So this one, about 12 years ago, I was down camping on the south coast in Dorset, and one morning I was just getting my breakfast, and I looked at the sky. There was this stream of rooks or crows flying across the sky. And it wasn't like a flock, it was like a stream. It was like a bunch of commuters on their way to work. And it had such a quite a kind of vivid effect on me. So I started writing about that. And then suddenly, this is what I find exciting when I'm writing a poem. You get to a point and you suddenly go down a wormhole and you end up somewhere totally different. And it's quite, you never know sometimes where that's going to be. And it was this poem that when I'd written it and I read it, and I thought, yeah, I should carry on. I should keep on writing. So it was like a watershed poem for me. So I'll share this one with you. It's called Crow Road. Bandit squadrons airborne in morning formation, pirate hordes, black hooded orcs, sights aimed at distant fields, black wing beats pulse with laconic purposeful rhythm, the crosshairs of dark crow eye bearing down with unflinching intent along their daily crow road, following ancient flight paths, departing commuter belts of nesting rookeries. Then a sudden jolt of memory, returning to primeval scenes of raucous bands of black-winged hoodlums, shattering the eager dawn of adolescence when I wandered freely along my own chosen byways. Now I trace the faded line along that crow road of first awakenings, sights set on distant horizons, unseen destinations, invisible from this low vantage point, gazing up at marauding bands of crow. So, and this other one, this is a bit sort of a tongue-in-cheek one. My mum told me one story. Apparently, we lived just down the road from the bus terminus that took you over to Walney Island and the coast and North Scale, where all the sandy beaches were. And she left me, putting at the washing out, she left me in the front garden. I was 3, I think. And she thought it was okay, the gate was closed. And then she came out and she couldn't find me. And she ended up going up and down the street. She eventually found me on the bus, sitting between the driver and the conductor, waiting for them to take me over to North Scale at a beach party or whatever it is that was going on there. So this is, my mother had me tested on being fundamentally human. Warning signs manifested early on as escape plans were laid, aged 3 years. My first attempt thwarted as this bambino was found up the hill from the family residence aboard the bus to North Scale, seeking the open horizons of sea and sand, the beckoning pleasures of the beach. In my defense, I put it down to basic human nature, the natural urge to disappear round the next corner, a growing sense of curiosity pulling at atavistic strings, looking for new worlds to conquer, at least take a look around, explore the surroundings. That and escaping the clutches of a dysfunctional family was like a magnet pulling at this habitual escapee. Further attempts to flee were regular events, getting lost on purpose in the local cemetery, and forays into the purlieus and dark haunts of Hawcourt Lane, returning home to parental interrogations, always late for tea, And then adolescence dawned, and further distant destinations beckoned. Taking a leaf out of Kerouac's Beat Adventures, we discovered the joys and pitfalls of hitchhiking. On the road to Torquay, London, to name but two, anywhere, as long as it was far away from home. So my mother had me tested, or so she said. I have no idea if I passed or not, but one thing I'm certain of is that I am fundamentally human, with human urges to resist, and I don't care what anyone thinks. I may be flawed, even skewed. Truth of the matter is, I am a fallen angel, and for better or worse, in the final analysis, I am a conundrum, a mixed up kid, a fundamental human hypothesis. So that was, yeah, my escape stories there in one poem. And I just did one, excuse me, again, taking the autobiographical theme again. I started a series of sonnets under the guise of Tales from the North Country. So I'm from Cumbria, Barrow-in-Furness, which is a shipbuilding industrial town. And I was doing a series, so before I forget, I was trying to kind of do like some kind of recollections of my youth or my experiences of growing up and living up there. And this was one of them. I was in the sixth form, and they have a shutdown fortnight. We're all in the big industries, the steelworks and the shipyards, and all the workers go on holiday for that 2 weeks. But in the meantime, they have people doing maintenance work. And I got a job there for this 2 weeks, and I got assigned to, I think it was with a bunch of fitters. And I looked out, I was wearing these beautiful overalls. And basically, I spent 2 weeks with these guys. Every time one of them shouted out "Oxo," I just had a spanner and I switched on the oxygen for the oxyacetylene in between. While they were going on with it, I'd be reading the newspaper until he shouted out, "Close it off." So I was going, shh, shh, shh. I don't think my overalls got a speck of dirt on them. So this is a shutdown fortnight at the steelworks. I'm sporting immaculate overalls, stepping out into a world of steel men, a wet behind the ears teenage know-all, cutting a puny figure, sent on errands for nuts and bolts, heavy tools of sundry shapes. Slouching, hands in pockets, I glide nonchalantly through this craggy landscape, peopled by hardened men, but with a gentle side to them that touches me. Their nods and winks, their avuncular familiarity. Gallantly, they take me under their wing, spoil me with fried egg butties and mugs of tea. It's an awakening, a kind of karma, horizons stretched by rude jokes and rough humour. Thanks. You got it. You can all speak now.
Thank you, Ian.
Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Yeah. Glad I could join just at the right moment.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I was surprised that people kept on turning up. It's been a sort of strange evening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Once again, it was a good memory poem, like that we talked about your job and everything. That was a good narrative, and there was some humor in it, of course.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, when I started it, I thought, yeah, Tales from the North Country, and I thought I'd do these little kind of miniatures, and I thought the sonnet form was the perfect vehicle for doing that. I've done about 10 so far, and I think I need to do a few more. You know, but I have like little incidents. Remember, with a friend, we Friday night about 11 o'clock, like we were wandering back from downtown down to the disco, and bumped into these two young girls, and we were escorting them back They said they were going to Dalton, which is a few miles away from Barrow. We had to go down some country paths. And then during the conversation, it turns out these two girls were cousins of this infamous family called the Langhorns. These brothers, there was about 10 of them, who were renowned. Usually most places will have like groups, you know, sort of a family, or the hard guys, you know, hard cases, or the ones who were always on a Saturday night having a fight outside the pub, whatever. And when they said that, so, oh yeah, the Langhorns, yeah, they're our cousins. So we, right, so walking into the lion's den, and when we got there, and they were saying, it's okay, we'll protect you. So we're walking into Dalton, and I'm not sure how it is in America, in the States, but you know, like these kind of local loyalties, and like the Capulets and the Montagues. It's like, you know, I remember once some guy coming up to me in Ulverston I was fishing in the canal, and he came up to me and he says, oh, where are you from then? And I said, oh, I'm from Barrow. Barrow, that's shite, isn't it? So, yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything, you know, to contradict you, mate. But yeah, we walked in and everyone kind of like, they recognised these two girls, obviously, because they were connected. But the looks they gave us, you know, I thought, bloody, you know, I'm just waiting for something to kick off. And that, but the fact that we were these two girls, you know, they couldn't do anything or say anything because they were our kind of protectresses. It was quite. But that's things that stick in your mind, you know, that you remember.
I like the roll
Let me say one thing, so, because Rick said he's on the way out. Someone said that David said that he might try to resurrect tomorrow. So if I'm sure a message will go out if that's true. Now, many of us may not be able to make it on a Wednesday, but if we can, I'll see you there if I'm there, and if I can't,
Tomorrow, today will be yesterday.
we'll see you next week, right? Yeah.
But